Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So before we get going tonight, a lot of you have watched the meetings and haven't watched the meetings, and you'll understand that Mr. Hogan hasn't been here for the last 3 meetings or so. So he asked Mr. Teagues to please say something. So Jimmy's got to read a little something from Bob himself. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For those residents who don't know, Bob Hogan had major heart surgery and has been under strict doctor's orders about his care. He thanks everyone for the many get-well cards and emails. He has another new set of doctor visits coming up, so he will know more about his ability to attend gatherings like Selectmen's meetings and other public gatherings over the next week or 2.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Welcome.
Okay, Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First up, we have an appointment in our police department. Chief Kent couldn't be here, so I will handle it for you. As many of you know, Officer Richie Hannifin retired this weekend after 35 years of dedicated service to the community. Congratulations to Rich on his well-deserved and well-earned retirement. The chief has recommended that Officer Hannifin be appointed as a special police officer. And with the chief's recommendation, I appoint Richard Hannifin to the position of Special Police Officer in the Burlington Police Department and ask that the board waive its standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
We'll move the second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained? Just real quick, I'll mention Richie himself. I know he's not here tonight, but a longtime resident, his whole life, I believe. Right, Michael? His whole life. Just a good cop and a good guy all the way around. It's a very, very big family with the cousins and everybody else involved, and we wish Richie all the best on his retirement. We'll be there in about 30 years, so everything's looking good for us. All right. Gentlemen, you worked with him. Would you like to tell him what a great guy he was?
Well, he is a great guy. No, he was, but he is a great guy, and the whole family, the whole Hannifin family, many members of that family in public service, police, fire, and other ways. Richie is a leader for the young, and a role model for the younger officers coming on the job, and I don't want to say he'll be missed as a full-timer, but he won't be missed because everybody that I know still wants to communicate with him, and I'm sure they'll be, as a special police officer, working with him from time to time. But he is a true gentleman, and I want to thank him for his 35 years of service to the town.
Absolutely. Michael?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a pleasure working alongside and getting to know Rich for so many years, both on the job and off the job as well. I do wish him good luck in his retirement, and I'm sure I'll be seeing him around.
Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It takes a lot to be a civil servant, and I think all of the men and women who serve the community of Burlington do a fantastic job, and a lot of what they do goes unnoticed by the town. And so I just want to thank Mr. Hannifin for everything that he's done for the community. I've had the pleasure of growing up and knowing a lot of the Hannifin family, and there's a lot of great people, and so I wish you a great retirement.
Anything at all to add? Anything to add?
No, sir. I just want to let you know, I'm sure Jim has heard it and Mike's probably heard it, but I happened to be here on Saturday and I was able to hear his final send-off on the radio. Pretty touching when you hear the send-off and all the officers giving thanks over the radio for the final call. It was pretty touching to hear for the first time for me, something like that. And just a great job by all the members of the department there.
Thank you. All right. Richie, good luck. You'll still be around. Go ahead. Move right along.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chief Patterson is here. We have an appointment in our fire department. I know that we got a lot of our firefighters are here. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you guys for everything that you do for our residents every day. And now I'll turn it over to Chief Patterson.
Thank you, Paul. Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, sir.
So tonight, we present to you Richard Delory. Richard Delory is a resident of the town of Burlington. Rich is actually a lateral transfer. He's transferring from the Winchester Fire Department to his hometown of Burlington. He's appointed to the Winchester Fire Department as a firefighter paramedic back in February of last year. He's graduated from the Massachusetts Firefighting Academy back in August of 2019, where he earned his Firefighter 1-2 certification and his Hazardous Material Operations certification. Richard also works as a paramedic with Cataldo Atlantic Ambulance. He covers a lot of North Shore communities, such as Peabody, Salem, Swampscott, and Marblehead. Many of you are probably going to recognize him as a former employee of True North Coffee Cafe, which is located in Burlington. He's worked many years at True North, and like I said, he's a familiar face. And back a number of years ago, when Richie was preparing for his original EMT basic class, he actually rode as an observer with us on the ambulance on many occasions. So he's come full circle. He's worked real hard. He presents himself as a well-qualified candidate, and I'm proud to present his name to Mr. Sagamore.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chief, Assistant Chief Connerty. Sorry, I didn't realize you were here as well. And with Chief Patterson's recommendation, I appoint Richard Delory to the position of firefighter paramedic in the Burlington Fire Department and ask that the board waive its standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, against? 4-0, Betty. Thank you. Before we get going, we'll come up here and say a few things. Congratulations, buddy. Good luck. All the best to you. So before you sit down, did your girlfriend Nicole, you have to turn around and get a view of those gentlemen back there? That's who he's going to be with all the time. We do want to thank the fire department for coming out again tonight, like they always do. Show support for those guys is incredible. So thank you guys for showing up again. Want to take a picture with Nicole and the chief and the assistant chief? Everybody but us, it would be great. You want to bring the family up too, you can grab a picture with the mother, father, grandmother, aunt, uncle.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
You bring your family up for
All right. 3, 2, 1, right here first. Perfect.
Here we go. Thank you.
It's a good looking girl.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Gentlemen, before you leave, I got one more thing I'd like to just bring up real quick with the fire department. So we have a new hire here tonight. This is more towards you than anybody else. The standards here in Burlington have been incredible for years. I'm sure that Chief Patterson went through all the resumes to find you, to bring you up here from Winchester, which is another great town also. These gentlemen will teach you a lot more than any other fire department around. These gentlemen are well-educated, well-trained. I can't say enough about our fire department, our police department. I just wanted to put that out there for the guys that are here, and please, we all thank you for everything you do every day. So, hold on. Being told something.
Hold on. Richie, you gotta teach them how to make a good cup of coffee, I know.
There you go. All right, thank you, guys. Thanks, Michael, thank you. Thank you very much. All the best to you. Good luck.
That's good, Jim.
So,
Cup of coffee.
I wasn't gonna bring that up.
Go on.
Thank you. Half the room empties. Mr. Sagarino.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight, we also have a couple of board and commission appointments. I've received the recommendation of our Conservation Administrator, John Keeley, for the following two appointments to the Conservation Commission. We have a member stepping down, and to fill that position, I appoint Don Bernstein to the position on the Conservation Commission and ask the board to waive its standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, against? 4-0, Betty.
Thank you. Mr. Keeley has also recommended that we appoint an associate member. And to that end, I appoint Kent Moffett to the position of associate member on the Conservation Commission and ask that the board waive its standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0, Betty. Other gentlemen in the room tonight? No? Not here? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have an appointment to the Zoning Board of Appeals. Candidate has been recommended by the Chair of the ZBA, Mike Murray. I wish to appoint Joseph Courier as an alternate member of the Zoning Board of Appeals and ask that the board waive its standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, against? 4-0, Betty. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, let's move right along. Update.
Oh, I got this next
Oh,
one here.
Northwest Park, I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Ahead of
Mr.
myself.
Chairman. Next up, I have a request from the Northwest Park Housing Committee to add the Housing Authority as one of the entities to be represented on the committee. When the board created the committee, a representative of the Housing Authority was not included. So the first vote I would ask you to take would be to add the Housing Authority as one of those boards that we pull from for members for the Northwest Park Housing Committee. So if that's acceptable to the board, if we could get a vote on that.
There's a question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, absolutely.
Paul, how many does that bring the total of the committee to? Is that 8, 9?
I don't have that here with me.
I was just curious.
Hi, Barbara LaRue, Planning Board, also on the Northwest Park Housing Committee. This is not instead of the person that was on Housing Partnership. This is instead of. In other words, we want the board to approve that one member from either Housing Authority or Housing Partnership is to be appointed. It's not both. The reason we're doing this is because our former member, Jim Doherty, had to resign, so we're replacing Jim Doherty with a member from Housing Authority instead of a member from Housing Partnership.
Okay.
I would
understood.
just suggest,
We're not increasing the number.
not to disagree with Barbara, but I think the intention on our end was to keep Housing Partnership available in case somebody is able to step forward and wants to join the committee.
Absolutely,
In addition
but
to
we're
the
not-
Housing Authority.
Yes, we're not enforcing an increase of the number right now.
Right
It would
now.
be the same number of people.
Correct.
Right, so with Jim's departure and this appointment, we'll have the same number of people, but the opportunity to have someone fill Jim's seat is available.
That's right there. Correct.
That was not my understanding, but I have no problem with it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right,
So
so,
those are the members of the committee right now.
okay, so it'll be standing 7, but total 8. Okay, that's fine. Sorry, I just wanted clarity on that.
Yep.
I couldn't remember. Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlemen, anybody else? Michael?
No.
Brother? Okay. Where do you want to go with this? Someone has to make a...
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to add Housing Authority to the pool of committee members to draw from.
I'll second that.
So Michael's made a motion for Housing Authority.
Yep.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, against? 400.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next part of this agenda item would be to appoint a Housing Authority member to the Northwest Park Housing Committee. Based on a recommendation from the Northwest Park Housing Committee, I wish to appoint Angela Wells Bean as a member of the Northwest Park Housing Committee and request the board waive its standard 15-day waiting period.
So moved.
Second.
So moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 400, Betty.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Next up, Mr. Chairman, we have an update from the Sculpture Park Committee.
Yes.
Let me see if can I bring this over here? I'll stand it.
Want to slide a chair over, John, with it?
No, I'll just stand at the mic, but I have, handouts for all of you. This contains the presentation. If you want to make notes,
Thank you, John.
we have one for Robert. I guess we won't need that.
Thank you, Bob.
I'll give it to him.
Before you start your presentation, could you guys just introduce yourselves to everybody here?
Yes.
So we all know who we're talking to?
Okay, I'm John Sachs. You guys know me, Chairman of the Sculpture Park Committee. George Radkovich is the head of the art program at the high school. And Dr. Elisa Adams is the president of the New England Sculptors Association. They have been our partner for over a year now in figuring out how do we go out and ask for people to apply to be part of this project. And they handled placing online call for entries with the national website. And we got 45 entries, and we're going to give you an idea of what we got and whittled it down to and what we actually are specifically asking to put out there. And as part of the process, George actually got school kids involved, both high school and grade school, to see what they thought. And we took some of their thinking into account in our final choices. We even have an actual school child here to say what she thinks about it, and a couple teachers as well. All right. So, just a quick reminder, the Sculpture Park project grew out of an idea that came out of the Master Plan Steering Committee, and there were a couple of people who are not here tonight who came forward and said, that's a good idea, including Bob Buckley, including the head of recreation at the time, Christine Brown, and also our well-known real estate expert, Sonia Rollins. So we had meetings, and then we became an official Sculpture Park Committee is an official subcommittee of the planning. George is on it, Kevin Sheen from Rec, Michael Witt, Library Director, Nick Priest, that guy, me, this guy, Barbara LaRue from the planning, and Bob Buckley, and then our consultant is Dr. Adams. So I just wanted to very quickly go over why this idea came up. We felt in steering that there's a healthy business climate, strong community spirit, a little bit low in terms of arts and culture. It's the only town around that we know of doesn't even have an art association, and we thought that a sculpture park would be a step toward bringing the arts to a higher profile. We felt, and I'll just read what it says, a sculpture park will help create a welcoming and culturally well-rounded home for both our current residents and businesses, as well as new residents and businesses looking to move to Burlington. And during this process, we negotiated back with the Historical Commission, and we have invited them to join us to send a member to be part of our committee, because they would like to bring some historical implements to a more visible place, and we're looking towards working with them on that in the future, if they're willing to do so. There's a very active arts program at the high school, and we feel like if the sculpture park grows and expands, it would be a way for students to be able to actually show their work. And we think that basically the sculpture park, having something fun and interesting like this downtown, in the center of town, would be a great walking destination for children and adults of all ages. So we won't drag you through the details, but we got 45 entries, which is a lot, because we knew we wanted to get down to a maximum of 6. can introduce, now, Dr. Adams, she's going to tell you what the process looked like from there on out.
Thank you. Nice to meet you all. So we started the project, well, I wasn't part of this yet, but 3 years ago, the project started. And once it seemed like it became a very viable idea with enough momentum and enthusiasm, the New England Sculptors Association was called upon to help with our expertise in pulling this off. The past president, Bill Bloomfield, was the one that was first contacted, and I am now the current president as of last August. And I started meeting with the committee in August to try to figure out all the nuts and bolts to this. We've had 11 strategic meetings to date, focusing on the nuances of taking on a project such as this. Once we decided about the why, and that was happening, it was about the where and the how, and to have continued discussions in trying to hone this whole project. And all the exciting tangential possibilities grew, i.e. a community engagement, because we do have a town that is a very business-oriented town, and this was a way to draw people together. And as we know, art totally does that. There have been many failed communities throughout New England that have just revived due to their arts committee, their arts presence. So we put out a call to the New England Sculptors back in November of 2019, and January 19th, we closed the call. It was done through an online juried process, as John was speaking about. And we got 45 sculptures that were submitted. And the committee met at that point in February, and we decided to have our first round of cuts, which was based primarily on safety, quality, and durability. And after that first round, we had 29 sculptures left standing, no pun intended. But in the spirit of community involvement, we decided that we should have the public schools involved, the school kids involved. It was just this idea that came up, and that they would end up having one vote as part of our voting on the committee. All of the voices of the kids would be one of our votes. So George organized all of this and went to all the schools. The middle school was going through finals, so they couldn't do this with us, but the elementary school kids and the high school's kids all got to review the 29 sculptures, and they each had, I think, well, he's going to tell you more specifics, but they all voted, and we got down to 13 of their top favorites. Even though we didn't choose everything that they liked, we imagined that it was pretty close to the collection that we had thought about out of these sculptures. So furthering this idea of community engagement on a larger scale, throughout our 2-year loan program, which is what we had planned for this, would be sending our artists from New England Sculptors to the schools, throughout the different schools, to educate them about sculpture and actually help them create and teach various techniques utilizing different materials. And then also involve residents on opening day or in annual events or closing day, and having our artists there for questions, creating community art projects, inspiring all ages to think about art in different ways. So it's not just a sculpture park. It can be a means to connect with people by having conversations about art. Why is it here? Where did it come from? How do we think about art? What makes good art? How does art impact our worldview? So also having a more enriched town, the impact of the park and having on existing businesses and future businesses can be quite inspired to come as well. So there's far-reaching possibilities. And it's clear from the amount of enthusiasm we have from our committee and people we've chatted about that it will be felt and regenerated throughout the community at large over a period of time. And the last thing I'd like to tell you about is NISA, the New England Sculpting, also has an ongoing loan program at Newbury Court in Concord. We've done several of these, but it's the assisted living community that's there. And so we have this periodic changing of the sculptures that come, and the people love it. Even if they hate the art that there is times, they have such great conversations about it, and it's really lively. And we also have set up programs where the artists will come in throughout that whole loan program, and they will either do a talk or a demonstration, or they bus the people to somebody's studio and they do a studio visit. So it's been really engaging in that way for them as well. And as soon as it goes down, then it's quiet, there's no sculptures there, and all the people in the community are going like, when's the next show coming up? When is this going to happen? So it's wonderful, and I feel very honored to be part of this and donating my time to the committee in this project. So thank you.
Thank you.
So this is us knocking out sculptures because they were too dangerous, they were too strange, we just didn't think, and then the kids helped us further. So this group that you see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, set to scale. We cut them out, the sculptors sent in photographs. We cut them out in Photoshop, scaled them so you could see roughly what size they were. Went out to the field that we were proposing to use with a measuring stick so that we could see what they would look like in scale on that field. So here we have a Photoshop mock-up of the sculptures, those on the field. The sizes are pretty accurate, but of course, when we really put them in, they might look a little bit different. We wanted the big dog on the left. That's the local sculptor who.
Yeah, that's Dale Rogers. Mhm.
Yes, that's Dale Rogers. That's his signature sculpture, big puppy dog. So we have a mix there, things like the dog, the red one in the foreground, the sphere in the center was very popular with the kids, and one of the reasons is because it glows in the dark. It's going to be made out of steel, and he's going to paint it with glow-in-the-dark paint, so it'll glow at night. The big cherries in the background, the one to the right is much more sort of abstract than the one in the left. So there's a mixture of modern, representative, abstract, colorful, and different materials. We would place the sculptures, roughly this arrangement, working with the sculptors, with cooperation from our DPW. And there is some possibility that when we now go to the sculptors, somebody's going to say, oh my gosh, something happened. So as far as we know, this will be the 6 that we'd like to bring here, but if somebody says it's not available, something might change. We would come back to you in that eventuality. We had an alternative thought, which we just wanted to toss out and let you guys ponder, which is that the corner of the common that faces this field, this is the field between Police and the Grandview, what if we were to take the big dog and put it at that corner, sort of facing toward the other 5 sculptures? That way, we'd have a little bit greater visibility. And we just sort of thought, well, that's an interesting idea. There's plenty of space in that corner, and it's not space that could conceivably use for truck day or any other purpose because it's kind of walled off by the trees. Got nice visibility. As you drive in up Center Street, you'd see it right there. So we plan on a big town event in June of this year. We want to make it a big party. At our next meeting, we're talking to a local wedding planner to be our advisor on how to run such a big event. We will be planning all kinds of related activities for kids and so forth. We may even cover the sculptures with cloth, and then we can have an official unveiling and make it a big town event. Fundamentally, this is an experiment. We have these for 2 years based on the money that we got from some donors, in particular from Nordblom. We want to see how the town reacts. If the town loves it, then, and it's clear that that's what's going on, then we might come back to you and say, okay, how do we make it permanent? Where do we put it? Because now there's a lot of other issues about, do we keep it here, do we not keep it there? But this is really a test. 2-year loan program, we asked each sculptor to give us an option to purchase. If somebody really loves one, say it's the dog, we would negotiate, and using, I don't know if he's here yet tonight, Bob Buckley would be spearheading our fundraising efforts with corporations, so there'd be a plaque next to each one saying who raised the money. In this case, the plaques will pretty much all read Nordblom, but going forward, if we were to actually make some of these permanent, crediting the donor would be important. So now, we're just going to talk about the school process, and then we're going to hear from students.
Yeah, as Elise already said, we try to involve as many of the students as we could. All the high school teachers involved all their classes, which meant talking about the work, looking at all of it, reading the artist statements, and voting on it. And it was a great process for us, a great process in like what makes good public art, and what did people respond to? What was responding favorably to? Two of our 4 elementary schools were also fully involved, and one of them was able to do, a third school was able to do it with a couple of classes, but not everybody. But what we found is that across the board, there were certain sculptures that both, you know, K to 12, all K to 12 students were pretty much in favor of, and several of them are in that group. I've got a few students here who were willing to come and talk to you about what they liked about the idea. It was all over. It was a great process for us because it helped us think about what good public art is, get us in really good conversations. There's a lot of critical thinking involved in this, a lot of batting forth of ideas depending on the classes that we were doing it with. But everybody seemed very much in favor, very excited about the idea. And so we've got a few people here. I'm going to start with the high school students. And we've got, let me see, I think we've got 5 high school students here. So you all want to come up all at once and like introduce yourselves and say what you like about it? Yeah, actually, maybe it's right here if you like.
My name is Sydney Hovass. I'm a junior.
My name is Reese McLean. I'm a sophomore.
My name is Gabrielle Mallard. I'm a sophomore.
My name is Ida Gachago and I'm a senior.
I'll start. I think that the sculpture park is a really great idea because Burlington's so known for like its industry and the mall and all the restaurants. So I think that if we brought something in that makes it more of like a cultural center, I think that drawing more attention to like arts will be a really great idea for the town.
Yeah, I also agree. Being part of the process of like voting and choosing which one really like opened my eyes and made me feel more included in the community. And I feel like I get to experience art like every day. So for more people who don't get that experience, like are lucky enough to do that, it will be like a way to like really open people's eyes to the arts more than they like usually do.
I think the creation of a sculpture park in Burlington is a wonderful idea. I know a lot of kids who were very excited and happy to know that their opinion was heard and appreciated in making these decisions, and that they personally helped to create such an exciting and inspirational exhibit. I know that this park will represent the creative expression and inclusivity that the students of Burlington value and the community as a whole values, and I'm excited to be here and advocate for that.
I think the park is a really
Can you just slide that mic over a little bit? You're so far down the end, I can't hear you. Or I'm just old. Take your pick.
I think the park is a really great idea, and I think that some art would really be good for Burlington. It'd be a great place to like hang out and take pictures as well. And I'm just excited for it.
Thank you.
Oh, we also have Luciano is here with her daughter, and her daughter participated. Lydia is someone who
I would like to have a sculpture park because we don't have a lot of sculpture in our town, and I love seeing sculptures and want to learn more about how to make them. Seeing other people's ideas inspire me and make me think. Having art and bike paths make people want to be outside and also make people happy. I enjoy these places in other towns and wish we had them here.
because it never had occurred to most of us initially to get the students so involved, but as you can see, it kind of struck a nerve where we said, wow, we think people are really going to like this. So, basically, that's it. Those are the 6 pieces that we like. We think they're safe, they're not dangerous, they're not offensive, they're colorful, and they would make that part of town a delight for 2 years, during which time we can evaluate how much the town likes it, how much you guys, if you guys get great feedback, we'll swear it was your idea. And if you get terrible feedback...
Don't worry about it, we're good at that, don't worry about it. That's why we took the position.
If it gets terrible feedback, I will write a personal letter to all the newspapers saying, I apologize, it was all...
Mr. Morandi's fault.
So what we're asking for tonight is approval to go ahead, put them in a temporary location right there, and we think during that 2-year period, we can sort out issues of permanent location. I would say if you like the idea, back a little bit, if this idea appeals to you of having the big dog at the corner of the common, let us know right now. But if you'd rather keep them all across the street, that works fine too. It was a way of sneaking into the corner of your common.
We've known you long enough, we know exactly what it was.
But you have to admit that
Looks
that
good.
corner of the common, we're really not fighting with any trucks or anything else, other than a lawnmower. And we think we have a rec department member on our committee, so we think we can talk to the lawnmower guys and get them to mow around the doggy.
Okay, thank you.
That's really it. And that's our last slide. We just want to answer any questions for you and ask your approval to go right ahead.
I'm sure the board has a few questions for you, so we're going to go from there. So we'll start with Mr. Priest, seeing that he's been on this subcommittee. Comments or explanations for us of a couple of things.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Before I get going, Mr. Sachs, did you mention there were also some teachers here who might want to say,
Oh,
I didn't know if they wanted to...
Why
I think they're upset that I called them out.
Why don't we do ours first?
You want to do that
and then
first,
we'll get-
then-
And then we'll get to the
Okay.
teachers.
Dodge that bullet for now.
I got one saying very good, she doesn't want to talk anyway, but, so you're going to be first.
All right, so obviously having been a part of this process, I've seen a lot of this already. Thank you to everyone who came to show your support and let us know what you've been up to. I really appreciate all the students. Thank you very much for coming out tonight. I really, really appreciate it. You know, whenever there is a full house here in this room for one of these meetings, I get excited, especially when it's folks you don't see, typically, right? So I really appreciate your involvement in the process and you guys coming here tonight. Culture's a tricky thing. I had this conversation a lot in my day job, right? Is, how do you even begin to broach the idea of what culture means, right? Because naturally culture has evolved, for us as a species over time. And now here we are as a species trying to literally force culture on ourselves to be more cultured. And it's kind of ironic. But the biggest thing is that we need to show, not tell. The more we talk about culture, the less it happens. We need to be able to take actionable steps forward to actually, bring culture around, which is why I was thrilled when we had the conversation with the Historical Commission. They came and talked to the committee for a couple different reasons, but, what came out of it was this idea of embracing Burlington's culture as a whole. And something that we'd like to work towards with them is this idea of, expanding the idea of the sculpture park to almost a cultural committee that looks to find places and ways throughout town where we can infuse our history for people to enjoy. Mr. Coppola had referenced many relics. I won't call them farm equipment or he'll have my head, but many relics that they have that they want to put out on display. And I think that's great because, people don't know enough about Burlington's history, and we're all very proud of our town as it is. It goes to show, people come back and settle here and it makes a big difference. So, to be able to reach back even further and look at our history, I think is very important. Let me say, I made some notes here, so I apologize. There was even talk, when you look at this area, this green space next to Grandview, the idea of getting the garden club involved and really trying to beautify the area beyond just the sculptures. I think something like that would be fantastic. I think we can probably dive into logistical questions as we go. I'm a big fan of the dog, I'm not gonna lie. I think it's one of the best ones up there. I think all the others all have merit as well, and I think that the committee did a great job whittling down the 45 choices to these selections. It shows a nice wide range of diversity, both in terms of medium used for the particular sculpture, as well as, I guess, perceived meaning behind the sculpture, which is really nice. Yeah, I think for now, that's all I have. I might have some questions as we move through, but in terms of making comments, I'll reserve it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Michael?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, your effort, you pretty much led the effort on this, and it's your determination to get it to this point. You really need to be congratulated for your getting it to this point. I'm glad to see the students here tonight. I know at town meeting this past January, caught my eye on either side of the corridor. I don't know, charcoal or pencil sketches or whatever, but they were terrific. I know I reached out to the students a few years ago, and they produced our 4th of July flyer for us as well. So we've got a great pool of talent here in Burlington. I'm glad to see you ironed out the issue with Historical Commission, and I'm pleased with the choices you have, and quite honestly, I would be in favor of your option B, using the corner, that small section of the common in addition to the field over there.
For the dog?
For the dog.
For the dog.
Let me just respond that this idea was kicking around for a long time, and we met with most of you guys, I think it's 3 years ago. But really, the folks from Nordblum and Bob Buckley, because Buckley came forward and told me, hey, there's money out there, and a citizen committee is required to decide what to do with it. And so I can't thank Bob enough. And then, of course, planning took us under their wing, so we have some real existence. So, yeah, I've been pushing on it, but without, and you can see with the partnership with the high school, the partnership with NISA, Michael from the library and so on, it's a real team effort. It's really town-wide. And I think it's going to get even, I think that those roots will grow even wider if we can go forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Tiggs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jonathan, I love that idea. I do have concerns about the dog on the common. The reason being is the intent is to draw families there, and families have their kids with them. And based on what I know over the years, I'd hate to see a little child get distracted by the dog and try to run across the street and see the dog. I mean, like I said, I love this. My preference would be to keep it together because nobody has to cross the street. That's just my opinion. Like I said, there are going to be families there. And, sometimes it's hard to keep an eye on all of them at the same time. One quick question, though. How do we keep people from climbing on these?
That's a good question. Most of them don't lend themselves to climbing. I think what we have to do is pretty much on the plaque that celebrates the donor, we'd also put, please don't climb on sculpture. We tried to pick things that if you did climb on them, you wouldn't get hurt. There were a couple of sculptures that were really fascinating, interesting, and we looked at them and said, anybody who touches this is going to come away, with cut fingers. So I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem. And keep in mind, of course, that it is right next to the police station. So hopefully that will keep any kind of rowdy behavior to a minimum.
And then just one more quick comment. The word I think about is passion. Jonathan, the passion you've had for this, you haven't given up, just to echo what Mr. Runyon said, from the time I saw you out in the common with the prototype to to today, just thank you for your passion in trying to do this. You really just stuck with it and didn't let go.
Well, talking to you at that town day and getting encouragement from you was really important to keeping the idea. Of course, at that time, Bob hadn't come forward, and we didn't have money laying around to do this with, so, and that's why I tried continually to drag you into the process, but you were busy elsewhere, and so we got stuck with none other than Nick Priest.
Stuck with? What? Come on.
I mean, we stuck with Nick.
It's all Mr. Chairman.
All set? All right, thank you. All right, so I like it. I like the idea. I think it looks great. But I have a couple of questions that we're going to turn over to Mr. Sagarino. Stuff that I don't know. We, at one point, we had asked for town council's opinion about the, hold on, I wrote it down, about the liability for these on the common. It goes under the town liability, right?
Yes, I don't
We're all
believe
set.
that there'd be any problem with adding it on to our existing insurance.
Okay. That's, I just want to make sure of all these things prior to going on a vote. Maintenance of the actual, I know the town's going to do the grass and all the way around it, but maintenance of those things, the tail rots in 6 months because of the lackey soldering or job, or the sphere, some kids get in there at nighttime and, you know how kids can be, they pull down one side of the sphere, the cherries in the back. I know it's all solid steel, but you get a couple of big high school kids and you never know what they're gonna do. So the maintenance of these things, who's responsible for that? The sculptor himself, the town?
Well, I think, first of all, we, the Sculpture Park Committee, are going to police it quite frequently. We're going to check on it constantly.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Adams, what would you say if, well, there's two issues there. One, if, let's say, a steel piece starts to, of course, for only 2 years, we're fairly
I understand
confident,
that, but I'm
even
just playing the devil's advocate at this point. That's all I'm doing.
Yeah, no, it's a good question.
You know?
Number one is, what if a piece starts to degrade on its own, the paint peels in some way? Or B, if kids do break something? What is our situation there?
Well, I think if it degrades on its own, that would be the responsibility of the sculptor to come back and either replace or bring a second piece or fix.
Okay.
I would reach out to them first and have them deal with that. I know my other thing was like, okay, they're all pretty durable. Like, I don't really think anybody, unless they come with some kind of hacksaw or something, but my other point was possibly spray painting. That would be a drag.
That's
if
another-
that happened.
Yep.
But again, I think those are things that the sculptor would have to be notified and figure out how to manage that.
My big thing was the liability. Who's responsible for it, us or the sculptor herself, or
Well, I think
the
in terms
town.
of replacement or something that actually was faulty and failed, that completely is the responsibility of the sculptor.
Great. Jimmy answered my other questions. He asked them. So all my questions were answered. At this point, I think we should bring up the teachers.
Great.
So excited to come up.
That's why we're here.
Good. I'm sure that you're comfortable with speaking out loud.
Yes, I are. Good evening. My name is Lauren Bino. I am the art teacher at Francis Wyman Elementary.
I'm Courtney Fallon. I'm the art teacher at Pine Glen.
One of the biggest reasons, obviously, we came here tonight was to support this project. Courtney and I both had the opportunity to talk about this with our students. I did it with the older level, grades 2 through 5. And it was just a good opportunity, kind of like a real world opportunity for the students to see. You know, we talk about sculptures, very rarely are we allowed to kind of leave the school and go on field trips and do those kinds of things. So we both kind of find it being, with it being in town, it could be something as simple, free admission, walk up the hill from Francis Wyman. You know, they often go to the Burlington Museum or to Simon's Park. Just sort of cross over the common, we would have, you know, our own town museum and things to see. And not only that, a lot of the kids are really excited about it. You know, they've asked me every single day since we've done the voting, when's it gonna happen? And, you know, it's hard to explain that process to them. It's like we're still in the works of doing this. But them being able to vote and kind of have their say in it, they've really loved it. Of course, they all love the dog too. And the cherries, which I hope you guys obviously got the opportunity to read, you know, what each sculpture was, because there's just so much more meaning to them than just being cherries and things like that. So having the opportunity to explain the size and what sculptures are made of, you know, is awesome for the students to have as well.
It was a really thrilling experience, and thank you for the Sculpture Park for including us in this whole process. As an artist, it's amazing to see artwork being put to the forefront in a community and really supported. And as a teacher, it was a wonderful, not only exercise in teaching, but also just to see students engaged actively in their communities. They had this incredulous look on their faces, like, wait, we get to pick? And I said, well, not just your answers, but yes, you do have a direct input on what is going to be happening in your community. And they're like, wait, so what is a sculpture park, and where would we find this, and why doesn't Burlington have one yet?
Yeah.
And so those questions really make them feel invested, and as a citizen, it's a wonderful thing to see students actively engage in their community and finding those avenues to get them involved and get them being a part of their community so they can go, we learned about that in school. We chose that one there. I voted for that one, you know? Or to get them involved and say, hey, wait a minute, why isn't the one I voted up there? I really liked that. And get them engaged in the conversation. So again, thank you so much for having us here, and thank you for the students who came. It's been a wonderful experience.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think you can see that just even before it even exists, it's starting to have an effect that's positive. I think that we were talking about having regular events up there, participatory events where not just kids, but people can come. Dr. Adams has experience with people who do participatory art, where in one afternoon we take some safe materials and we just build something fun, take pictures, and then it's all gone by the end of the day. I think that if this becomes a regular thing, the unveiling of new sculptures will be a big town excitement. The kids will get into it each time. The way I kind of look at it is, gee, well, you know, if we wanted to build a modern art museum, we need $100 million in a place to put it and $5 million a year to run it. Well, we don't have any of that. Here's an art museum that has no staff, no plumbing, no wiring. We just put them out there and we get to look at them. And I think it's going to, as you can see, I'm always so excited to hear the teachers talk about it, so.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one quick comment?
No.
if I may. I think Chairman Runyon will like this one, though. Jonathan, the goal is June of 2020?
That's our goal. We think we can do it.
I have a thought that Mr. Runyon might appreciate, that if you want to promote this,
Yes.
the July 4th parade could probably use a float promoting
Oh,
the
indeed.
sculpture park.
Oh, interesting.
There you go, thank you.
I like where you're going with that.
Good idea.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, would it be appropriate to be in the parade after the sculpture's already up?
Yeah, promote it.
Well, I don't know if you remember, but I do happen to have two 12-foot styrofoam dragons, which could be, I can talk them into doing the parade.
Or we can have that as a community project, that people
Right.
could create something. Like, we have a woman that does mosaics that's willing to come and, you know, do a community involvement where they actually are creating what they want to make the mosaic look like, what the wall would look like, or what the piece would look like, or it could be a sculpture also.
Okay.
So this input from the community, actually, what would that look like, you know? And also, I spoke with George about possibly doing a logo for the sculpture park, and back to the kids again, and let them come up, let's have a prize money for that, and, you know, have a contest about the best logo for the sculpture park. So there's a lot of
There's still a lot going on.
There's a lot
Okay.
happening, there's a lot brewing
And we'll
still.
be back.
Thank you.
In probably less than 2 years, we'll be back to you guys and say, this is what we think the results are. How can we make this permanent? Because it's really an experiment.
Absolutely. Mr. Sagarino.
First of all, I just have one comment, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all very much for all your work that you put into this. I just had a question on, does the committee have any ideas on how we're going to gauge the public's level of engagement in 2 years? I think that could be a little tricky, and I'm hoping that we're not sitting here in 2 years saying, well, I talked to 7 people that like it and 2
have an
people that
idea
don't
about
like
that.
it. Something a little bit more scientific, or do you have any
We had one
thoughts
of
on
those
that?
things, you know, when you go to the airport bathroom, they said, how was your experience? Good, you know, they have the red, green, blue button. Maybe we have that here in Town Hall, or we have it out by the sculpture park, or in key locations where people could evaluate the sculpture park.
We could certainly do it in the school system with our kids. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, that's not hard to do at all. So,
I would say, I think that's a really good question, because I've been wondering that myself. I mean, how do we really validate that it was popular? One thing would be the turnout at the unveiling, but that's has to do with how good a job we do at putting out the word, and we don't really have any much budget to work with. We would certainly be there for Town Day, and that's a great way. I suspect that we would do things like videotape people talking about the sculpture park, because they do have to cross the street on that day, but that's about the safest day that you could probably cross Center Street is during, on Celebrate Burlington Day, to come across there. But I think that's a good question, and we have to, as a committee, think about how we can do it. But the schools is number one, but reaching the adults, the voters, the
But
taxpayers.
people, when they're voting, that there's that same thing set in place at all the different voting precincts.
Yep, I think we could have, the committee could have somebody, because we only have one voting location, we could have somebody standing outside and saying, hey, here's a colorful purple donkey, would you vote on whether you like the sculpture park? So, yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Thank you. I know we have time to consider that. I just think that will be important 2 years from now.
I think we'll hear about it on Facebook.
All right.
Positive.
So at this point, what I'd like to do is I'd like to say thank you to the kids that came from the high school. They did a great job tonight. It's not easy getting up here and speaking when you know you're on TV and all your friends are watching, and you get a little nervous and a little stuttered in the throat. I do it every night that I'm here, so don't be worried about it. But I really would like to thank, I know she's hiding back there somewhere. Where is that little girl? Huh? It took a lot of courage for you to come up here tonight, so thank you. Thank you very much. So how do we want to go about this? You want to go about just a vote on it, or do you want to vote with the dog on the common itself, or is that something we vote, or just leave it the way, any way I want, right?
Whatever your pleasure, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Paul. You're the best. Whatever my pleasure is. Gentlemen, I'd like to discuss very quickly the dog on the common itself. It seems to be something they like. I understand Jimmy's concerns about kids crossing the street. I actually like the idea of the dog being over there facing out. It's not a question of where it is. I think it's more of a question of the kids crossing the street. This is when you want to go back to old school and you want to say, well, that's the parents. You know what I mean? That's what you want to say, but today's society, you can't say that. Or did I? So, that's my theory on that. Gentlemen, any comments on it at all? I know how you feel. So, Michael, anything else?
I I still like the option B. I understand Jim's concerns.
Absolutely.
But I'm comfortable with option B, allowing the use of the corner of the common as well.
We'll keep the number at 6, is that what it is, right, 6?
Yeah.
We'll just put the number 1, because the Burlington resident, over on that side, or whatever, how we want to look at it, the dog itself. I'm glad he's facing that way and not the other way. Coming up the street, that wouldn't be nice. Mr. Priest?
Yeah, I understand Jim's concerns. It was a concern of mine as well. I don't mind it on the common. I think that as folks are coming up, you know, it'll be a nice visual. The dog's very recognizable. You know, and I think that we just ask folks, and I'm saying it now, to be careful, you know, when you're crossing the street, at any point, anywhere, in any town.
Okay. So I think at this point, I'd like to make a motion on the sculpture park itself, and then make a...
Chairman, real quick?
Yep, absolutely.
I'm not going to oppose it, I'm just want to make note that I have concern
Okay.
about that, so
All
that's
right,
all.
okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we, if someone wants to give me we need this for approval, right? Motion made and stuff. Make a motion for the sculpture park on that area, and then put the dog on the other side. So who wants to?
Sure. I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman. I make the motion that we approve the 6 sculptures as seen, with taking option B with the dog on the common.
We have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Opposed? 4-0, Betty. Approved. Congratulations.
So much.
Thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, too. It's nice. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So they're all staying? Mr. Sagarino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have a public hearing for an moving permit at the request of the engineering department for our DPW rec facility project. Tom Hayes and John Sanchez are here to answer any questions the board may have. If I could have a member read the notice, and then we'll conduct this as a public hearing.
Do you have it written down somewhere? For some reason, I don't see it.
Oh, it's in there.
Is it?
Yep, it's in there, Nick.
Thought it was in there.
Down.
Want me to read it?
Oh, here it is. Okay. All right. The Board of Selectmen hereby gives notice that it will hold a public hearing on Monday, March 9th, 2020, at or after 6:45 PM at the Town Hall, 29 Center Street, Burlington, MA, second floor main meeting room, to consider the application of Town of Burlington Department of Public Works for approval of an earth removal and/or earth moving and addition of fill permit pursuant to Section 4.2 of the Town of Burlington General Bylaws, Article 15? 14, X1, XIV, right? That's 14? Roman numerals, man. The property located, 14. The property located at 1 Great Meadow Road, DPW Highway Facility.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sure.
Ready to open the public hearing, sir.
Yep. Okay. Gentlemen, you want-
Good evening. Tom Hayes, I'm the town engineer. John Sanchez, DPW director. So tonight we're here to request a permit for earth moving permit. This is really not new. This is something that we've had in the plans since we have been presenting the DPW facility. So the problem we have at 1 Great Meadow is we have some underlying soils that need to be consolidated and compressed. It's not cost effective to dig it up. It's all anywhere from, has 5 to probably 15 feet of overburden. You know, the area was at one time a wetlands that was filled, and so at the time that is filled over poor material. So in order to consolidate the material and prevent any further settlement in the parking lot, what we propose to do is preload the area. So when you preload the area, you take structural fill, and you pretty much just dump it on the site. And you let it sit there for anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks, and you measure the settlement. And when it achieves the appropriate settlement, then you can remove that fill. So what we're bringing in, the little snippet of the map that I gave you shows the highlighted area in yellow, which is the area where we have to preload. And it's, depending on the density of the material, we're looking at anywhere from 2,500 to 3,000 cubic yards of material that we put there. It will all be clean fill. Whatever can't be reused on site will be taken away and disposed of outside of Burlington.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we'll start with Jimmy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you think, what, about 10 weeks down the road is when all this is going to happen?
Well, right now we have some contaminated soil that we have to excavate, dispose of. And once that's done, the preloading can start. So we're looking at probably 2 weeks out before we start bringing material in.
And how long of a process is it
Well,
going
it
to?
goes in pretty quick. I mean, it's like 3,000 yards of material, so just start hauling it in.
Well, I was trying to include the 6 to 8 week settling period, so.
Probably up in, through the summer. And it all depends on how fast it can, how fast it settles to get the, enough settlement out of the area. So it's been guesstimated that, 6 to 8 weeks would suffice. But what you do is you set up a gauge and you just measure how much that pile settles. And when it settles enough or it stops settling, it's time to remove the fill. And we should be all set. And there's nothing structural here. We have a little bit of a canopy down kind of on the stream side of it, but pretty much the rest of it's just parking lot. And if you've been out there, the parking lot's it's rough because it's settled over time, and we want to prevent that from happening with the new facility.
Now, Tom, this is the existing Public Works site, since we're
Yes,
talking about 2 sites here, so this is the existing.
So this is the existing highway barn at 1 Great Meadow. So the active site right now is the former Clark and Reed site, which is 10 Great Meadow. So demo, if it hasn't started today, it will start this week. But this site's 18 months out.
So this is for phase 2, I guess we could call it.
This is phase 2, correct?
Okay, I'm all set.
Thank you. Michael?
No, sir. Good.
Mr. Priest?
Tom, I apologize. This is for my own edification, because, so, the preloading, it serves what purpose? And I apologize. It's to settle, there's underlying soils. It's probably organics. It's whatever was filled over, in the 1950s.
Okay.
So what we want to do is we want to compress all that, so to get all the settlement out of the area. So when we go and we pave it, we don't want the parking lot to buckle and heave. Okay, so we bring in this other fill to help settle the...
You put all the fill on it, it's a lot of weight, it squishes it down.
Okay.
And then whatever, and they, the contractor will reuse some of this fill, it's just clean gravel. They may reuse some of it on the site, but whatever is not used on the site will be disposed of.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, public hearing.
Public hearing, sir.
So I'll open up to the public?
Thank you.
So I'm going to open this up to the public. Does anybody here speak in favor or against this right now? Seeing there be nobody, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Made a motion and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
400, ready to close public hearing. I need a motion on this from someone.
Motion to approve the earth moving permit for 1 Great Meadow Road as presented.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
400, ready in favor. Okay?
Thank you very much.
No questions at all. All right, good luck. It's easy. So we all signed up for this, didn't we? Right?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At our last meeting, the board asked for an update on the town's MWRA project, and John and Tom are here to give you a little bit of a roadmap and a time frame and answer any questions the board may have. John?
So if I may, Mr. Chairman, so just a little bit of going back to, we'll remember what Phase 1 and Phase 2 are, since we just talked about Phase 1 and Phase 2 here. So the MWRA project that we have going for water is also a two-phase project. Phase 1 being in which we connect to the system in Lexington to provide about 1 million gallons of water to the town of Burlington, and 99.9% of the pipe will be installed within the town of Burlington on Adams Street. Phase 2, which we hope will be a couple of years from now, that will be a line that will go from the end of Adams Street all the way to Arlington to actually be able to supply the entirety of the town of Burlington at that point. So when we went through a MEPA process, the environmental process, we went for the whole project because it didn't make sense to do half now and then 2 or 3 or 4 years from now doing a little work again. So that made the project go a little slower, but again, we don't have to do it twice. Good news, in a way, is that we are probably 2/3 of the way in the process. We filed our final environmental impact report a couple of weeks ago. It should be published on the 11th, which I think is Wednesday. And then at that point, people can make comments on the project. The comments due date is April 10th. And the decisions for the environmental impact report should be issued on the 17th of April. So assuming that everything goes well, that triggers the next part of the project, which is now to get an approval from the interbasin transfers, and we're going to take water from a different basin to this basin, and that goes through the Water Resources Commission. Good news is that whatever we file through the MEPA process becomes the application to the new process. They do have a number of hearings they have to have. They have to have a hearing here in Burlington. They have to have a hearing also at the donor basin. After they go through a hearing process and the approval process, the staff will send a recommendation to the Water Resources Commission for approval or denial, at which point they'll have a third hearing to see if the application is deemed as something that they will approve. So this process from now until the end of that may take through the summer. It may go faster depending on whether or not people have comments on it or whether or not there's still questions to be answered. Once we finish that process, then we can, at that point, go and officially send an application to the MWRA to join the MWRA. They have an internal process which should be a lot faster than everything we've been doing for the last couple of years. However, we're not waiting. We're not waiting to get those permits. The engineering department is moving along right now with finishing the design for Phase 1. They actually went and got permits from both the Conservation Commission Burlington as well as the one in Lexington. We're submitting for extension permit with DEP, so we're moving that track along such that once we get the permits from the MEPA process, we're able to go to construction and hopefully construct that line during this calendar year. It's challenging because of the permitting process doesn't allow us to actually start construction until all of this process is complete. But that's what we are. So we're waiting for all these deadlines and comment periods, and unfortunately, that's what it is, so we can do the construction. At the same time, and because of the amount of time that all of this permitting is taken, I'm proposing that we move forward with the design of Phase 2. If you looked at our original plan was to go next year in 2021 and ask town meeting for funding for the entire project, Phase 2 that is. So what I'm proposing now is that let's move forward with the design this year, because that will allow us to cut a year of the next phase. So instead of asking for the $17.9 million that we were going to ask in 2021, we'll probably ask for about $1.5 million this year, so we can do that design and hopefully start construction of Phase 2 once we complete construction of Phase 1. If everything goes well, we're still looking at 2 to 3 years from now before we're actually totally connected. But that's pretty much what the process is, and it's sort of outside of our hands. We have been pushing hard to get this project fast-tracked. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was congratulated by somebody in the MW area how quickly we're moving compared to other communities when they have gone through a process and they've taken them as much as 5 years to go through a process. Right now, we have up to 2 years invested in this. So I know it sounds like a lot of time, but I guess we're going faster than most people could. So, and I'm grateful for that. So we're here to answer any questions on it.
Gentlemen? Mr. Priest?
Mr. Chairman, I actually have no questions right now. Thank you.
Praise the Lord Jesus. Feel it pumping over here.
The only thing I want to mention, I know I got an email, I think last week, it was a 146-page document or something from MWRA, so I feel your pain going through this process, and appreciate the update today.
Thank you.
Mr. Tiggs?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When you say 2 to 3 years out, is that the completion of Phase 2?
Correct. We hope the completion of Phase 1 will happen this calendar year. That's what we are shooting for. Phase 1. Did I say Phase 2? I meant Phase 1.
So it's almost like 90% of the process is permitting and 10% is building it. Is that accurate or pretty close?
Yeah.
Welcome to government.
I just want the residents to understand that. I mean, you know, again, we'll probably have to use the water ban. We're always in a water ban, and the residents have to understand it's not that we don't have the water. We can't produce the water at the volume that is
Required.
they would like because of the wells being down that we have. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Sounds like by doing the work now alongside the permitting process that you're going through, the simultaneous work you're doing will bring it to us a year in advance, but as the chairman stated, it's welcome to the government. It's not that we don't want it, it's not that we're not doing it, it's the hoops that we gotta go through just to get the paperwork side of it done. And then after all that's done, then we can do what we wanna do and we have to do. But just want the residents to just be patient and know that it's not us, we're not the reason why it's taking so long. So that's about all.
You all set?
Good.
Okay. I'm all set. I'm good. So, thank you for your time. Going to approve this. I didn't look at my glasses yet. That was an update. That was just an update, okay?
Yep.
So thank you for the update. I will not keep you any longer. It's late. You've been here since 7 o'clock this morning, so enjoy your night.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have a request for the board to approve the 15th annual road race for the Burlington Education Foundation.
Good evening.
Hey, how are you?
Just a little clarification, it's the 16th annual Burlington Education Foundation Road Race. Sorry about that. That was my error. My name is Julie Conley. I am coming to you tonight with my volunteer hat on. I have been a volunteer for the Burlington Ed Foundation for 16 years, wearing numerous hats. Tonight, I'm coming to you as race director for this year. We are seeking your approval to have and conduct our 16th road race. It will be a 5K road race. It starts at 9:30 in the morning on May 17th. We also run a fun run a little earlier that morning. It's a family event. We have lots of sponsors in the area who will come out as well. We start and finish the race at the Burlington High School, the cafeteria entrance. We block off the parking lot, have all sorts of sponsors there, people milling around, fun things for families to do, as well as a road race. It will be the same exact route that we've had the last 15 years. We have a police detail on duty. Lieutenant McDade did confirm that. He'll have 2 to 3 officers on bicycles. For the event, we have permission from the Burlington High School to have the event on their facilities. I do have this signed documentation here. Not only do we have the road race on Sunday, but we'll have a pre-registration on Saturday, and we'll have some more organizational activity to do on Friday. All 3 of those events at the high school have been approved, so I can submit those to you too. And that's it. So I've been working with the Burlington Ed Foundation for the last 15 years, and we have raised over $200,000 for grant money for our teachers here in Burlington. So we've done that through our fundraisers solely. We do have star awards that our community members purchase. We raise money with that. We have a trivia night, which just happened to be last Friday night. I hope you got to enjoy that. That's another fundraiser. And then the largest fundraiser is this road race.
Great, thank you. 16 years is a long time. Jim?
Just one quick question, because it involves the approval process.
Yes.
No rain date, correct?
There is no rain date. This event is rain or shine.
Okay, that's all.
Michael?
No, sir.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned a race starting before, like an early bird type thing?
Yes,
What time does that start?
that's a 9 o'clock start.
Okay, so 9, and then everyone else kicks
Yep.
off at 9:30.
So the fun run starts at 9 o'clock, and that race is for families, students, children, and their parents. And that race just goes around the high school, so it's a lap around the school itself.
Okay.
That's for
About a
us.
half mile.
Nick, that's for us.
That's, okay.
That's for guys like us. All right. And
Anybody's
they have a
welcome.
golf cart too if you need it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. Seeing there's no other questions, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make a motion to approve the 16th Annual Burlington Education Foundation Road Race for May 17th.
Second.
Motion by Nick, second by Jimmy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained? 4-0-0 in favor. Good luck again.
Thank you very
Another
much.
year.
Thank you.
We'd like to say Mr. Harley will be down there with the donuts in the morning, but, you know, it was his big thing.
This is King's detail officer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up, we have representatives from the Burlington High School postgraduate celebration to discuss their annual event with the board. Welcome.
Hi.
Thank you for your patience.
Hi, how are we?
Great, how are
Good.
you?
Good.
I'm Stephanie Marchese. I am one of the co-chairs for the post-graduation party. I'm Karen Waisner, I'm the same.
And I'm Carolyn Conti. I'm also a co-chair and participant for many years now.
So we are here to ask, we have the overnight party. This year it's scheduled for Sunday night, June 7th. It starts at 10 p.m. It ends at 5 a.m. Monday morning. And we are asking, we've already confirmed with Officer Outerbridge to have 2 policemen there for the night, detail overnight from 10 to 5. And we're asking for this committee to cover the cost of the detail for those 2 police officers for that night. This is, I think, do you know what year it is that we've done the 20?
Since 1991 was the first one.
was the first that we've had. And there haven't been any alcohol-related incidents on that night with any of the students since inception of the party, knock on wood. So it's a great event. We usually get about 85% participant in the party of the graduates that come that night and stay. It used to be held at the high school, now it's held at King's. And it's just a great event. The kids love it every year, and it's awesome, so.
And it's still going to be at King's?
Yes, be at King's this year again. We already got approval for that. Yep.
Mike, we'll start with you tonight.
I know this has been a terrific success for decades here in Burlington. It's working well, and I think a lot of other communities have taken notice and are doing similar things. So just want to thank you again to our friends at King's. Kids are having a ball over there, and everybody that uses that facility has a good time, regardless. So they've been a great neighbor since they came to town.
Absolutely.
I have, I'm certainly happy to support the detail officers for the event.
Mr. Priest?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you all for everything you do. I had my all-night party at the high school, so I feel a little gypped that Kings wasn't here. We had a good time, but, it's...
You can come this year and help us.
Not gonna be that weird guy, no. No, but it's great, and I think it's great that Kings is an awesome neighbor in this way. And it's awesome that, Officer Outerbridge and the Burlington Police Department are so supportive and easy to work with and, helpful in that regard. So, no actual questions. I think this is great, and, I hope we keep it going for years to come.
Thank you. James?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Great event, and you have my full support.
Great, thank you.
Well, I definitely have the support of all of us, but I mean, talking about all-night parties, and you guys had Mike, would you go? Good Harbor?
Something like that, yeah.
That's one thing I had mine too. We weren't the same weekend, but it's a long time ago. We had to drive ourselves too. It wasn't even fair. Anyway, need a motion on this, gentlemen. You guys get King's,
Chairman,
bowling, food.
I'll make a motion we approve the cost of the police details for the Burlington High School all-night party held at King's this year.
Second.
Motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, against? 4-0-0 in favor. Good luck.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, Selectman Priest will be happy to know that the ABCC has told us that this is a hearing, but it's not a public hearing, so no need for him to read the notice this evening.
All right.
Tonight, we have members of the Ahern Family Charitable Foundation here to talk about a wonderful event they are holding at the Marriott. I know that General Manager Phil Bond from the Marriott is here. Welcome, Phil. And after the discussion on the event, we'll have 3 votes that we'll need to take in conjunction with this to affirm paperwork that's already been approved at the state level. So, thank you for being here, Mr. Bond.
Thank you. I'm Philip Bond, I'm manager of the Marriott, and I'm here on behalf of the Ahern Family Foundation, which is hosting a gala at the hotel on March 14th this year. They've asked for some special arrangements that require us to get permission from the ABC in the town regarding our liquor license. One would be to accept or to allow for a charity wine license, also allow us to accept that donation and serve it at the event, and they'd like to extend, just for their small portion of their function, an hour extension of our liquor license, only to be used in the meeting room for their VIP after-party
Could
gathering.
you just move that mic in a little bit for me, because I'm struggling.
Sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
So those are the 3 things that require permission. We hosted this event, I think the last time was in 2014, and had hosted it numerous times before that. They subsequently went to other venues. They'd like to come back to Burlington. They raise money, and they use that money for assistance to returning veterans and military families. Is basically what their foundation is.
Thank you.
Is anyone here from the foundation who would like to talk about on television while we have an audience here to sort
I
of
don't- no, not
talk
yet.
about the great work that they do?
But they've raised a lot of money, and, you know, they're really excited to bring the event back to Burlington, so.
Okay. Gentlemen, questions? Start with you.
No questions. It sounds like a great event, so I'll just leave it at that.
Michael?
Just, I see that the date of the event is it's Friday.
Yes.
Yeah. So we better get this taken care of tonight. Right? Yeah. No, actually, the name rings a bell. I think I was on the board last time they did it in Burlington. But no, I have no further questions.
Mr. Priest?
No questions from me, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Twice. It's twice. Amazing. It's 2 times.
Twice in one night.
All right. I'm just going over everything right here. There should be no questions about this. This should just, it's a great event. So at this point, we want to do these separately, all approval, each one of them
Yeah, if
separately?
you would, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. The first one is to approve charity wine license for the foundation.
For one day,
So
please.
1 day.
1 day.
And again, this has already been approved at the state level.
Yep.
So we're looking for the selectmen to affirm that.
Gentlemen?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the charity wine license for the Ahern Family Charitable Foundation.
Second.
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, against, 400, Betty?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion, we approve the acceptance of wine, charity wine, accepting charity wine from the Ahern Foundation, wait, as written.
Motion made.
Second.
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, against, 400, Betty?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the extension of the closing hours as requested.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
400 again, Betty.
Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Thanks for your patience tonight. We had a lot on the agenda. And I'm behind schedule. All right, now. Sir. I'm trying to figure out. We have an update?
Update on the Burlington Housing Authority
Yes.
appointment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just the update is that the advertisement seeking candidates has been extended to March 23rd at your request. Sometime after that time, you were going to work with the chair of the Housing Authority to set up interviews for the position, and with a goal of having a joint meeting with the Housing Authority and on a meeting, our first meeting in April. I think that's the schedule as it is right now, and you're just looking to update the board and the community as to sort of what's going on with that.
Okay. So it was just an update on what's going on with that. You guys all set with
Good
that?
with
So we'll aim to appoint in the first meeting in April, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, okay. 3:32. I got it.
Whitney's here to review some budgets for the board's approval. Ready when you are, Whitney.
Okay. Can we start with 176 Board of Appeals? So the Board of Appeals budget is level funded for FY '21. The salary portion of the budget is made up of the part-time salary for the board's recording secretary, and the expense portion is just a small amount for materials and supplies.
Thank you, Whitney. Gentlemen, questions, Board of Appeals?
No questions.
Do you want to do these as we go along, Paul?
Sure.
So I'll make a motion on Board of Appeals.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the Board of Appeals budget as written.
Motion by Nick, second by
Second.
Jimmy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, the same. 400, Betty. Thank you, Whitney. Next off is,
Okay, next we have 113, which is town meeting and reports, which is also level funded for FY '21. The salary portion of the budget covers the kids that run with the microphone at town meeting, the people who check in. The expense portion covers the cost of printing, the warrants, the backup, the budget book, the annual reports, all that kind of stuff. Again, also level funded for FY '21.
Thank you. Gentlemen, any questions on that?
No questions.
Seeing there being none, we have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the town meeting budget.
Motion by Jim, second by
Second.
Nick. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, 400, ready. Paul, you can jump in anytime you want if we're going. Any questions at all?
Oh,
or
no,
any-
fine. We get
Any
some-
comments you have?
We have some great, straightforward, 0% increase budgets
Yep.
tonight, so it should be hopefully some easy votes from you guys.
Absolutely, thank you. Whitney?
Next, we have 119, which is legislative committees. So this is a new department that was created in FY '20, which is a consolidation of a number of legislative committees put together. That's the town moderator, ways and means, capital budget, zoning bylaw review, and bylaw review. The increase in the salary portion for this year is due to the addition of the funding for the bylaw review committee to have a recording secretary.
Gentlemen, any questions?
So Whitney, just real quick, that 21% increase is solely due to the?
Yeah, because it's such a small budget, they had put in 2,000 for the recording secretary, and it knocked the whole
Went
thing
right
up.
up. Okay, great.
And what we tried to do with this one is we used to approve a separate budget for the moderator for $150, and a separate budget for the Ways and Means recording secretary, which was $1,200. So we tried to take all those tiny little budgets and combine them into one just for simplicity purposes. And, we've gotten into a little bit of discussion of why some committees have recording secretaries and why some don't. And again, the determination was made that the zoning, the bylaw review committee could also use a recording secretary as opposed to taking their own minutes at their meeting. So we added in a couple $1,000 to put it there.
I'm not recording secretary for the Northwest Park Housing Commission.
Let's talk about that next year for budget, Mike. Absolutely, makes a lot of sense.
You'll be retired.
I'm just teasing. But I am.
Any other questions on that? No? Make a motion on it?
I'll make a motion to approve the combined legislative committee's budget as presented.
Second.
Made by Nick, second by Jimmy. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstaining against, 400, Betty. Whitney?
So next we have Department 900, which is the negotiated settlements. This budget looks a little different than some of the other ones. This is the budget where we set the amount this year will be $500,000 for FY '21, and then as contracts are settled, funds get transferred out of the negotiated settlements into the individual departments' budgets. So last year it was at $880,000, and we had at that point many unsettled contracts for FY '20. So for FY '21, we have A&P and part-time, police patrol, and fire. So we have fewer contracts that are outstanding that need to be settled, so that's why the number has gone down accordingly.
Love good explanations. Gentlemen, any questions?
No.
Seeing there being none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the negotiated settlements budget.
Motion by Jim, second by Nick. Mike? Take your pick.
Sure.
Nick got it. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Against? 0, Betty. Emergency? Whitney?
So next is emergency management. That's also level funded for FY '21. The salary portion covers the salary of the appointed director, which in our case is the assistant fire chief. And then the expense budget covers various materials and supplies that he needs, as well as training for various emergency procedures. Again, level funded, FY '21.
Thank you. Gentlemen, once again, any questions? Seeing there being none, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the
Made by Nick,
emergency.
second by Jimmy.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Staying against? 400, Betty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Whitney. As far as I know, that is the last of the operating budgets, so unless there's a change through the Ways and Means process, The operating budget part, you guys have already worked your way through the votes on that, and next up, we'll be bringing to you warrant articles and capital items and different articles like that as they are submitted, so
Awesome.
the operating
Thank you.
budget should be squared away.
Whitney, great job, thank you.
Thank you.
John Denizio sitting in the back, another good job. So you got all your books with you, he's all ready to go, if there's any big questions. Thank you, John. So at this point, we're gonna do the minutes, but we're gonna pass over the minutes. We're gonna wait till our next meeting for the minutes. A couple things are in the works on that, so we'll pass it over, and we're gonna go right to subcommittees. Do we need to have a reason, do we need to explain why we're gonna skip over the minutes? Was that enough?
Is that good?
Is that enough?
Just postpone it.
Just postpone the minutes? Okay, thank you. So we'll go to subcommittees. We'll start with Mr. Runyon.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, all I have is Nick and I attended a meeting this morning. I don't know if Paul's going to touch on that in his report or not. I will defer to the town administrator.
Okay. That would be you, Paul. He's deferring. Oh, you want to wait till you're...
I could go now
go
before
ahead.
someone else steals it.
Not us.
I just wanted to make a comment to the board and to the community at large is that our Board of Health and our Public Safety departments are working vigorously on the COVID-19 coronavirus issue. There's no, we're still in Massachusetts and in Burlington, there's a very low risk of this, but I have to tell you that I'm unbelievably impressed with what our Board of Health and what our Health Director, Susan Luminello, I feel like that we are light years away. We sat in on a conference call with some other communities in the state, and I really just feel like we were so far ahead of the curve in terms of what they've been talking about. So I just want to reiterate that the best place to go for information on this here in Burlington would be the Board of Health website. It's being updated constantly. It's constantly changing situation. But I just want to assure everybody that we have some great people working on this and thinking about potential issues and just working on keeping the town and the residents safe. So I just want to affirm that for everybody. I'm sure everybody already is aware of that. And I know that Mike and Nick joined us for a department head meeting today. We went into detail. But again, the best place to get information on this is from our Board of Health website, and it's being updated on a regular basis. So continuously check in on there to get your factual information on this virus in terms of what it is and what's going on. So,
Thank you very much. Nick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First off, huge shout out to Amy Warfield and the town clerk's office for last week's primary and all the work they put in on that. Did I take this? And I asked beforehand too. You said
I didn't say anything. I'm sitting there. I'm
You're
good.
crossing off
I
your
just
list.
want to make sure it's...
You're crossing off your list.
I'm making sure. It's good.
You know, I participated in early voting, which went very smoothly, and you know, just huge props to her and her team for all of their help. Thank you to everyone who came out and voted. Always great. I had the opportunity to attend the Education Funds Trivia Night last Friday. An absolute blast. This was our second year going. Just, I mean, packed room over at the Hilton Garden Inn. Folks having a great time, you know, raising money, you know, answering questions. Just a really great night. If you haven't gone, I suggest you definitely, you know, go next year. Just, it's a really great time. And then in terms of actual subcommittee reports, the ISAC committee is currently working on a journal bylaw article to bring forward town meeting in May with the hope of creating a standing ISAC committee. Knowing that cybersecurity threats are not going away, and that, you know, this digital age will only continue to grow and grow as we move further and further into it. We feel as though a standing committee would be very advantageous. So they're currently working on that, and more to come as we approach May town meeting. That is all. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Jim?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be attending the initial meeting of a potential solar committee forming tomorrow afternoon. So that's a work in progress. The fire department, this past week, they participated in a rapid intervention training this past week at a house. It was under the supervision of Training Captain Mark Cedrone. This is where the crew simulated rescuing a downed firefighter in a structure that was filled with smoke from smoke machines. Firefighters also practiced the use of emergency communications while simulating the rescues. Second item from the fire department is a reminder to residents that this past weekend was daylight savings times, and this is a good time of the year to check your smoke detectors and check your batteries if they need to be replaced. All batteries need to be replaced, and all detectors should be replaced if they are 10 years or older than 10 years. And finally, from the fire department, after 34 years of service to the community, firefighter James Sherman will be working his last shift this coming Friday, March 13th. We all wish him a happy and healthy retirement. And one more item is the rabies vaccination clinic is coming this Saturday, March 14th. It'll be held at the DPW Highway Barn on Meadow Road, and it's from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. The fee is $15 for 1 year, or $20 for 3 years. It is a cash-only event, and they're requesting you must bring proof of the last vaccination, not just a copy of the license. And you do not have to be a resident of Burlington for that. And I'm done.
Thank you. Okay, so that leaves me with a couple of things. The DPW started tearing down that building over there at that site. I swung by today, it looks great. I know we had the groundbreaking ceremony, but they've got 4 or 5 big machines in there just tearing it apart. It was kind of, brought my dad over there, and it was kind of like, do you know what was here 105 years ago? Yeah, wood's dead. But anyway, so I brought him over there, that was great. Secondly, it's gonna be that start of the season pretty soon. We haven't shut off our water ban yet, we're still on a water ban. So people within the next couple of weeks, I know how it works around here, they'll be starting their water and their grass before it even needs to be. So just put it out there, we still are on a water ban. The last thing I have is to say goodnight. So, no, Mr. Sagarino, Chairman's report, I already did yours.
Good, yes, thank you.
Okay, well, that's all I have. There's no one out here for citizens' time, so at this point, I need a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Nick, second by
Second.
Jimmy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting adjourned.